found very interesting when he was talking about, in some of his interviews, he was talking about how he will welcome anybody, white people or anybody who was willing, at least to kind of help alleviate the conditions of black people in America, which is a vastly different kind of, kind of request, kind of plea that he would, which kind of not problematized, but kind of diluted the kind of discussions of about racial pride. He still had racial pride. But this racial pride was something that was more of an individual kind of self-conscious sort of understanding, rather than a political doctrine or anything like that. And so I suppose I was just thinking initially I was thinking about this issue between black life and Islam and where that fits in, because I'm not too well read on Islam or anything, but it's just kind of interesting how where he did advocate his commitment to Islam, he became more fervently Islam. He no less kind of addressed his affinity with it through the prism of the black experience, and so, which is quite interesting. I think it will highlight for me that Islam being this kind of religion of brotherhood, but one which could be addressed through different eyes, and it's not this kind of metaphysical notion of the one and the many. It's just loose thoughts like that about how Islam is conceived of and sort of access.
I think it's interesting. You've raised a number of points. So I was going to say I was going to start from the first point. I'm actually going to start with the last point that you raised. But the idea of which you said about, or Malcolm's view of Islam, and he did mention on one of, I think it's in one of the hands, but he did mention that he believed that obviously believing in the oneness of God and obviously the oneness of man to the brotherhood, that could alleviate or eradicate the human cancer of racism, because obviously to see that we've come from the same experience as obviously as human beings. But in saying that, which he did point out, the black experience is, or the white experience obviously is different. Like we'll come from different experiences. But the only thing I would say is, and I don't think he saw him becoming more religious or more Islamic or whatever. Anyway, that meant that he's not going to be defending black people, fighting for the rights of black people anymore, because ultimately Islam, and how a number of Muslims view Islam, is a religion teaching people that you should fight for justice, whether for Muslims or even for non-Muslims. It's about teaching justice. You understand what I'm getting at? So, and this is something that I think even evolved his way of thinking about it when he was talking about, after his discussions with a number of the leaders in Africa, that he wasn't looking at racism just about like black and white. It's more about fighting for justice. Do you understand? And I wouldn't be surprised if later, if he lived longer, he would have been fighting for like other minority groups like women and things like that, irrespective of their colour. But he, like he said in a number of his speeches, although he was a Muslim and he didn't view race or didn't see people's colour, he was a realist. And even when he's speaking about the plight of black people, he always speaks about his main concern is the plight of the 20. He says it so many times, the plight of the 22 million African Americans, because that's where he's from. That's not to say that he's not fighting for the plight of black people in Brazil or black people in the UK, which he was aware of, but that is his main concern because that's where he's from. He understands them more than anyone else. Do you understand? And then, obviously, when he travelled, then he realized, and that's why, coming to the whole concept of Pan-Africanism, he was trying to connect with the African brothers in Africa and African brothers in parts of South America, but ultimately he was trying to defend or fighting for the rights of African Americans. Obviously, that's where he came from. I don't think him being a Muslim or, like I said, becoming more religious anyway kind of deterred him from that struggle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that.
I think he refined it, if anything, and I think just coming to the point, which you made, which I think is important. Even the idea, and he mentioned, and he says one of his regrets was, and it was shown in the film where he said a young white girl came to him in the restaurant and asked, "What can I do to help?" And he said nothing. And then actually he did mention that I think is when he spoke to Gordon Parks 2 days before he was assassinated, that was one of his regrets. And then so that's why even with the organisation, the two organisations that he set up, he did allow white people to help but not join. Why? Because if you're letting, and I can understand, because if you've got an organisation that's about black empowerment, and again he spoke about the idea that when it comes to serious things, we always go to white people, and you see it in this society as well. When it comes to entertainment, music, you know, we're the main people, but when it comes to serious things, we want to go to someone else. So in order to, even for black people to overcome this, you need to have black people in power, so they won't think of, when they think of intelligence, they think of white people. When they think of slavery, what do we think of? We think of black people. That needs to change. Do you understand? I'm getting that. So him having this organisation where it was exclusively black, but he did say white people can help, but they can't join. Do you understand? So his views did change, but ultimately I think people need to understand that even as a Muslim or as a black nationalist or Pan-Africanist, and when you was talking about the experiences of like blackness and black life, people can relate to it because everyone has been oppressed. So even if you're white, rich, you can relate to like the black experience of oppression, for example, like in America. But ultimately, to some, I say you can relate to it, but it doesn't mean it's going to be the same. The same way I can relate to some respect or understand what a woman goes through, but I'm not a woman. I don't understand her experience. So it'd be wrong for me to put myself in a position of a woman's forum and speak on behalf of women. And I'm not going to be helping their struggle if they're trying to empower themselves. Do you understand? I'm getting that. But that's not to say that men shouldn't be, I don't think that's not to say that men shouldn't be able to join or not join necessarily help. The same way, like I think that was like Malcolm's understanding why he's with the Afro-American Unity Organization. He was exclusively black, but he said white people couldn't help, which obviously prior to when he was in Nation of Islam, he wasn't help. He wasn't going to white people. He wasn't using them to assist them with anything. But I think that's a couple of interesting points you raised.
I think my point that I had in my head was that I think when he was making that address, the interview about being open to contributions, that it wasn't I don't know, it wasn't like a question anymore of, you know, just being moral. That, you know, that the moral standards have completely collapsed. And you know, even within the Nation of Islam, even among black people. There was no way that, you know, it just got to a state where black people couldn't really help themselves. And that I think that was the sort of reality of Americans. I think that they can't help themselves because their inability to help themselves even was a symptom of a broader problem, a global issue, or, you know, it wasn't a racialized thing. It was just a problem with the inadequacy of human moral conscience, and so it was more, I suppose, an ethical kind of thing, which is to say that, you know, an organisation should be like for black people, but then this organisation has to be understood kind of outside of the black experience. But at least its end goal shouldn't just be the support of black people.
Right. Okay. Then tell me
more. It shouldn't be a sort of moral question between, you know, just because I can shit like so it's just like, you know, why isn't this happening? Why are we doing something? I suppose it's more of a problem of action.
No, good points. I like that. Good to think.
So there was some talking points. Sorry, did you want to engage a bit more, James? Or and are there any other points that you want to raise? Aya, any points?
Back to me. You come back to me.
I'll come back to you. Okay, sure. And we've just spoken to. So I wanted to perhaps just raise a few things. We're actually having the Nation of Islam at a session. That will be quite controversial for some, I'm sure, but I want to engage in conversation with them. I think it's very important to invite them and speak to them. And we're having the Europe representative, the European representative throughout the entire Europe. Actually, the minister, I'm not sure what he calls himself, the Minister of Europe, not quite, but the Nation of Islam minister, who's good friends with Farrakhan, will be speaking actually at a session, and I'm quite interested in having a conversation with him about black separatism. And I don't know how we can look at black separatism in a contemporary understanding, or say how we as non-black subjects of, say, a state such as Britain, how we can position ourselves within this state in kind of looking at the idea of black separatism. I would say, because I was speaking to an Iranian friend of mine who was speaking about how black separatism can be seen as it's very, very important and quite revolutionary, in the sense that how would non-black subjects, non-white subjects in a white supremacist state as Britain position themselves, so they wouldn't engage themselves in, say, the party politics, or they won't necessarily want to become complicit in, say, a reformist political sort of work, but rather separate themselves from this dynamic and engage in a conversation kind of similar to how we're doing today, and try to have an understanding of our position in the but to try and escape this Eurocentric kind of positioning, you know. So yeah, that was a bit rambled, but I think black separatism is so important, and for me it's just very like revolutionary and interesting, and I still really highly regard Nation of Islam on a political level, even in the US today. I think Farrakhan's position in relation to the elections is revolutionary, and I definitely think that he is intelligent in some of his work, and how he frames a lot of the oppression of black people in the US, and also Europe and elsewhere. So yeah, I think he's very important. I have disagreements on a theological level, but on a political level, I hold them in very high regard. In fact, Dr. Khalid Mohammed, he was in the obviously Nation of Islam and also the Black Panther Party. He was an amazing revolutionary, and I'm like in love with him. I think that he said some amazing things, and he's like, you know, represents a very revolutionary kind of politics in relation to black separatism. So can you maybe engage a little bit on black separatism and how we should take them seriously, and how on certain issues that the Nation of Islam, even on social justice movements, and they're doing kind of projects in the UK in relation to the family unit, and they're kind of promoting this idea of like the black family and other kind of projects as well. So
probably going to be like rambling thoughts, because there's a lot that you spoke about. If I'm honest, I don't agree with like the whole black separatist or black nationalist ideology.
So how is it understood? Like
okay. Also, I was kind of coming to that. I was kind of my issue is, and I think it's important, especially us in the UK or us in Europe in particular, actually, not only us in the UK. American history, in terms of especially understanding race relations, is very different to the UK and Europe, and I'm sure we're aware of that, even in terms of understanding blackness. And I think one of the issues is that a lot of non-white people in the UK, we adopt the American model in terms of race relations, and we try to, and I see it as what, so the solution in America might work there, it might not, it might, I would argue that it won't necessarily work here. Why? Because, again, understand their history with the whole one drop rule. And if you've got a drop of black blood, you're considered to be black. And the whole idea that you have a white or, they're generally white or black, that idea is not this, we don't have the same structure in this country in terms of understanding the race relations. That's why I don't think that will necessarily work, right? Because there are many mixed race people, there are many people of like Asian descent who do not identify, and rightly so for whatever reason, as black. And this idea that they have to identify as black because they're non-white, when in America they might be able to align themselves with whiteness because they might be considered, or even North African. Like even recently, there's even like some uproar in America because in the American census, if you're an Arab, you're considered to be white, right? And then now some Arabs are saying that there should be a separate category called MENA, like Middle East of North African descent. Now, even then you're going to go into the problems of, okay, if you are a North African, if you're from like Morocco but you're dark in complexion, like some Moroccans are dark as me or darker, in America you'd be considered to be black, but according to that census, or according to the census now, you're white because you're an Arab. Do you understand? I'm getting at. So who is like my issue is what is blackness again?
But are they Arab because they are from the Saharas and Sub-Sahara?
I'm sorry. What is an Arab and what is blackness? So if you say, I mean, are you an Arab because you speak the Arabic language? Are you an Arab because your forefathers are from the Arabian Peninsula? And a lot of Arabs, particularly in like North Africa, are Berbers. They're not even They're not Arab, but most people. But most people, most people are ignorant of that. So this idea, and I think it's so. For example, Berbers are not Arab, and some may consider themselves to be black, and some may not consider themselves to be black. Where are we going to put them then? And so to clarify, my issue is that to say that everyone should be called black, it's problematic because if you're fair in complexion, so you're white, you're very fair, you are white. Descriptively, you're white. Why should you call yourself, say you're black because you live in Africa? And then what do we mean by whiteness? Is whiteness just mean you're of European descent? And then if we're talking about European descent, what part of Europe? If you're from Turkey, you might not be considered to be white European because you look too much like an Arab. I mean, that's my issue because I think in America, again, because in America, it's different in terms of how non-white people are treated. As you're categorized as black. I don't think it doesn't work as well in other parts of the world because we haven't got that same history in terms of like race relation. I think when we try to adopt the American model or their understanding of blackness, we can learn, because again we need to create our own, again not to say that we should work for them, but I don't think you can just copy everything what's going on in America, their strategies and their solutions and think it will work out, because not everyone, even amongst black people, there are some, even speaking to some of my relatives like in Nigeria, racism is not an issue until you come to this country or the West. Like they're not talking about race. So this whole idea of aligning yourself with blackness, they're talking about their tribe. If you ask them where they're from, they'll say I'm Yoruba, I'm a House or whatever. And similarly in the other African countries, they're not talking about I'm black. It's only when you're a minority in a racialized country, then you understand like what blackness is, which is really a social construct. And again, within Africa, and this might sound controversial, but even in this country, you've got, and it's so ridiculous. You've got some or many people of West African descent and Caribbeans who are considered to be black, and then if you're from East Africa, you're not black, you're Somali.
Is this term used here as black minority ethnic?
No, but even amongst us, how we use the term, who is black?
Yeah.
Do you want to? Ayaan wants to say something.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Like what you're saying about that, like
within ourselves,
East African community, there's a huge issue. Yeah. Like, with the older generation, you tell them they're black, they're not black.
They're not black.
They're not going to accept that they're black.
Yeah.
But do they identify as Arab or?
They would say they'll have Arab descent, but they would say they're Somali.
They're Somali.
They're Eritrean, they're Ethiopian, but they're
not black. And even amongst a number of like quote unquote black, like West African or Caribbean, they're black, but they're not. But so you got black people, and then you got Somalians. It's ignorance.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, even amongst ourselves. So if you've got even amongst the black community, not everyone is embracing blackness. How can you then say this is the solution for black people?
Yeah. No. So I think you misunderstood how I
interpreted. I'm not saying it to you. I'm just saying in America that might be the case because they're all considered and regarded.
But I
as
wasn't
black.
talking about actual separation from the state in a physical form. I was talking not engaging with, say, reformist political ideology. So, i.e., you're separating yourself from, say, the institutions, the structural.
No, I agree with you, but I'm just saying that if the people themselves, they do not embrace that identity, how do you engage with them?
That's a really.
That's like if they're saying, "Oh yeah, all us black people," and I'm not black. Who are you engaging? You're engaging yourself.
But I think that's where Pan-Africanists would
but then
put their...
But then even this idea of, Pan-Africanist or Pan-Africanism, are we saying, because that's, again, similar to the one drop rule. If you've got a drop of African blood, therefore, then you, of African descent, because if you're 10% African descent, but 90% of European descent, are you African?
Is your loyalty with?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got the answers. Don't get me. But I'm just, these are things which when I hear
I
it,
would
it's
say
like,
more critical sort of theorists from Pan-Africanists.
I'm saying when I read a number of Pan-Africans or when they talk about black people, again they're speaking from like anyone from their perspective and their social environment, and generally from America it's very different to the UK, or even like for example Brazil, which is like in terms of understanding self-identity and racial relations, it's like America but in steroids. So if you're going to try and adopt that American model, that two white and black, and use it in other parts of the world where they themselves as self-identify as black, you're going to do disservice to them. You can't then say, no, you are black because in America you're black.
Yeah, that's where I was saying the whole Eurocentric Western narrative is quite
so
sort
did you want to?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about certain things about like the whole concept of how we construct race is very problematic, just on a general basis, right? And then we're talking about like Malcolm's identity as a Muslim.
Yeah.
I think there's a whole complexity to that as well.
Yeah.
Just because within Islam, I think there's this huge. I mean, everyone like kind of talks about it, but I mean, again, it's this whole concept that we're taking a very Western, Eurocentric idea of race and translating that across, which is very problematic.
That's what I agree.
Because the way we understand race in Islamic history, or even like contextually the way Muslim societies are, it's very, very different.
Very different.
So like, I mean, it's kind of like one person was saying that in Mauritania, for example, where a form of slavery still exists, you can have someone who, will look like us, black, in skin and stuff, but they will be considered an Arab. They're considered an Arab, right? But someone who might be slightly, shades lighter would be from a family that's come down in slavery and they're still enslaved.
Right.
I mean, they might not have that slavery but they know, this descent from them. So I think it's very, so coming back to, I think the